Welcome in, everyone. This is our flow recap for the week of 224 to 228. We had a pretty volatile week, so we have a lot of flow to look at. And as always, I would like to show everybody that may be tuning in for the first time. All flow will be called out. I don't edit my flow or anything. So we're going to kind of dive into all the flow. It's going to be a little longer of a video here. So let's get started here. So first up, we have the 314 SPY 578 puts that came in on the 24th. So 24th will be our first day that we're targeting. And as always, we're going to go through the full range of the contracts. We're going to see where the whale exited and that max return. So let's get started here. So let's go over to the 24th. So we can see that clean entry here, 15,000 contracts at an average of 223 for 3.5 million. When we look at that raw flow, can come down here, and first thing I start looking at is I want to come down to the bottom here. So I'm looking at that IV and that spot to see that fill that's coming in. So keep an eye on that IV so we can see that IV starting to increase here. We can see that spot price increasing as well here. That spot price continuing to increase here, and we can see it's a repeated hits ascending fill. Can see that IV percent going up there again as well. So this is a good sign. This is a very good example of what a textbook piece of flow would look like to me. We got that spot increasing, IV increasing, IV continuing to increase, and that spot continuing to increase. And when we look at that flow, so we can see that quick pop here, and it looks like that whale actually sold these at 293, but these did. We'll come back to Friday here. So these hit a high, so that's that original entry there. That whale taking profits there, and you can see that reflected here in that volume to open interest. We can see we had 37,000 contracts traded here on the 24th, only 5,000 carrying over, so we know that whale closed same day. And these actually hit a high of 706 here yesterday on the 28th. So that is a max return of 223.85% there. So moving on now, we had these 321.45.5 BAC calls. So again, coming in on the 24th, these came in at 89 for us, 90 here. It's going to show that. These actually hit a high of 141 yesterday. So you can see that up here, shows a high there. Pretty clean day there. A couple days where you would have been down a little bit, but then also I want to look at that net call premium too. So a good sign here, you're looking at that net call premium. Again, here's the 24th. Can see that spike in that net call premium on the day. Then not seeing a lot of put premium here, and then that big spike yesterday. So good move on those. I have 0.89. That was a call out to 141. So 58.43% on those. So next up we have the 321.61 CVS puts. So this one's going to be a little difficult because it's now 99% multi-leg. So we that original entry here was at 131. You can see that here again on the 24th. Looks like that volume's still there, but 99% of this chain is multi-leg now. So I have this actually, I went with the low end here and went to 59, which we could have saw that whale, and if we look a little deeper here too, it's gonna get a little tougher here. I mean that this looks pretty textbook almost here. I mean your spots coming in at the ask, IV's up, but you have that 99% multi-leg, and I believe that came in here. I'm trying to find where that multi-leg is. So yep, this came in a little bit after that original flow, so it started to get pretty messy there. You can see it's 99%, so I went with a loss of these, and I went on the end here of about 113 where we started to see that other action. which would have gave us about a 13% loss on those. So next up we had the 4-4-12 RIVN calls. 107 was the fine there. So again, this one obviously has a little time on it, 34 days. We'll look at the raw flow. So again, looking at that raw flow, kind of a little drop in that IV in here from up there, but you're seeing ask side fills here. Starting to see that IV kind of trickle down a little bit here again. Could be sells at the ask, but obviously seeing some mid-side fills here as well. If we bump this to 250, because what stuck out here to me, this is why I consider it a buy for those that are interested. So we had that spike in that IV here when the bigger size started to come in here, and you're seeing a wider bid-ask spread here. So all coming at the ask, IV jump. Have to kind of see what happens up here because it's a little muddier up here, but beginning of it looks like a buy. We'll have to see what happens here, but these contracts, so again, 107, 108 is the fill. Running about 0.92 right now, so that whale's down about 14% with 34 days on those. We look at the net call premium. Big spike back here on the 20th. Other than that, kind of a bigger spike there on the 24th. But not seeing much action otherwise there. PLTR, this one's going to be a little tougher to track. So this was our original whale entry at 410. I have them taking contracts off here around that 275, 276. So I'm going with they sold those at a 35% loss. So when you get something that's a little more mixed like this, gets kind of hard to track. But obviously PLTR had news this week, which caused the drop. Kind of caught everybody midday on that one. So Intel, these were the 228, 23.5 puts. So again, coming in on the 24th. Let's actually bump this to the 24th. So interesting on this one here. So coming in at 63, I have 65 as our entry. And this is why I always tell people you kind of want to be monitoring your trades because these ran actually relatively quick. So 63 hit a high here of actually 110 on the day. That ask got a little wide there. So enough time to kind of come down here. I mean, when you're at that 110, I mean, that's 65 to 110 actually. Let's take a peek here too. I want to go back to Friday and see. So actually it wasn't the same day. That's why I kind of like to keep that full chart open so you can see. But come back to the 24th here. You can see we had 37,000 contracts traded. To me, it looks like that whale probably closed intraday on these. So you have 15,000 there, 17,000 there. There's about 30,000, only about 6,000 carrying over. Obviously, you have that other volume. But this whale should have swung because on your next day here, on the 25th, we had a high of 110. So this is where my 110 came in. These hitting 69.23% for a return. Obviously seeing a little volume here at open. So it could be some taking off there, obviously, for those that would have swung. All right, up next we had the 3.7 Nike 78 puts. 113 was the fill. Again, this one would have had a little slower mover, so 113. We'll look at the flow here. And when you see this, obviously, you can see it's a floor trader coming in. That IV spikes as that volume and size come in. Not right at the ask, but a pretty big bid-ask spread there, so you can assume they're buys at the ask. And again, you're looking here, so that was your entry 113. These actually hit 143 here on the 28th, and seeing some volume here, so my guess is they're probably taking some off the table. So those hitting about 26.55% there. NUE, this one is pretty flat right now. I won't spend a lot of time on the ones that are flat. Again, 24th coming in at 95. These did end up actually hitting on the 26th here a high of 110. I have 125 for a high on that day, so those actually did make a move about 31% from that 95 to 125. But it looks like most of that volume's still in there and kind of chopping about 47 from that 96 entry. So curious to see what happens there. Obviously weeklies, but those did make a move. They hit our target. I like at least 15% for a target. Reddit, so this was one of our flow and charts plays. I will touch on that in the 25th category because this would have came out on the 24th at night. So we're going to move on to PayPal quick here. So PayPal looks like this whale. So that whale coming in here at 98 on these. Looks like they cut. I have it about 56 here, so seeing some ask side volume here, come in here, and some more ask side volume here. I have that exit at 56, so that whale would have sold for a 42% loss unless PayPal makes a huge move up here within 27 days, but that bid side candle there is kind of telling me either this whale averaged down a bunch and then sold here at 29, or I have it at a loss. I went with a medium loss here of about 56. So again, those 0.98 to 56, so we went with the cut at 42%. Hood, so these ones, so 3,400 contracts, 253, 258 was the fill I have here. Obviously hitting a high of 361 here on the 27th for 39.92%. You can see how that's kind of moving up here. Looks like majority of that volume's still probably there. XYZ, again, 20 days on these left still. 197 was our, or I have 188 as the fill. Trending about 115 right now. They're down about 38% on those with 20 days left. Curious to see what happens with those. And now we will go back to Reddit because this was a flow and charts play, so I'd like to pull that up in the flow and charts. And for those wondering, flow and charts are what I'm taking. So this was our Reddit. So we had multiple ask side hits on the 220 at 170 call for a total premium of 1.4 million. You can see that entry there, net call premium spiking. So kind of looking at that daily chart, we were in a demand zone here, bouncing off that 50-day moving average. And I am going with on the Reddit calls here. So we're going to go, it would be the 25th would be our entry. So if you come here, let's see if I can get to the, it's going to have to go back 7 days. Let's see. So your 25th. So if you went with the high entry here, I have the high entry at 226. We actually hit 485 here on the 27th. So that would have gave you a 114% return there. And that was one of our flow and charts plays. So up next we had MSTR. So again, here's our flow coming in at 1557. I have 1605 as an entry. We look at that flow. So again, we'll come up here and look. So let's pop this out. So you can see when that flow starts to come in here, pretty big jump in that IV. Again, wider bid ask on something like this, all coming in at the ask. Shows it's a descending fill because you have that one little hit right in here, but again, it's only a penny off from that ask, so you're still seeing essentially ask side fills. And coming up here, small little drop in that IV, but again, most of that's up there. Obviously a little wider bid ask, but you're pretty much coming in close at that ask for most of it. So 1557 was the high there. Actually hit a high of 3091 here, pretty much around close here and open on the 27th and 28th here. So you can see we had that high, enough time to get out on those. So those running for 92.59%. Up next we have Airbnb. These were kind of a little quicker mover here, but still would have given you enough time to get out. So 121 was our fill on those. We had a quick little pop here up to 170 and just kind of a slow grind down, 145, 146. So plenty of time to get out on something like that. But again, that max return there, 122 to 170, and we can see that actually 175 was high on the day, but we went with 170. So 39.34 on those. Next up, we have the 417, 579 SPY puts. So these coming in 871. So this was our entry here on the 25th for that. So again, kind of looking at that flow here. So again, you can see that IV increasing as that flow is coming in, spot increasing as well, so that's your ascending fill. So kind of a small pop there, kind of a little slower grind, but we did hit that high here on yesterday on the 28th. Actually, 1272 here on the 28th, and I mean, we're up on the 27th. So again, a couple good days where you could have got some volume out of that. So curious to see what happens here, because we're now 54% multi-leg, could be rolling those out. So Apple was a flow and charts one, so that will be touched on as well when we get up to the 26th. AAL, American Airlines. So, whoops, let's see. Let's go back to the 26th, so it's a little better view. So when I'm looking at the 26th on this one, actually these were the 25th. So we had that spike in that volume here again. Let's pop the results down. Again, you can see that IV staying up, ask side fills, and it's a little bit wider bid ask here. It might only seem like it's $2 on something like this, but again, if you're trading thousands and thousands of contracts, that adds up. So again, we did have some no side flow coming after this as well. So looking at the 25th here, had 21,000 contracts. So again, 7,600 there, 6,600 there. So we're going to say about 14,000. So good chunk of the volume kind of coming off the same day. Obviously, multi-legs now up to at 31%. But these, I mean, made a nice little move up intraday here. I mean, they hit 17 towards the end of the day. But our big move came. Whoops, let's go back to AAL. Big move, and again, so that's where you're seeing that ask and no side. Saw that slow climb up. We actually gapped up the next day. We hit a high of 32 here on the 26th. So giving us a 146% return on those. So again, seeing some volume here on the 26th. Not all of that carrying over, so gonna kind of see some of that fall off here too, and obviously some yesterday as well. Next up we have CLS. So again, these kind of making a quick intraday move again as well. 191, obviously you can see we hit 245 here. So actually it looks like, nope, we're going with 245 because that would be your high over there. So 245 on those, so 191 to 245, that's 28.27%. Looks like that whale's still in. Contracts are about 103 right now. HIMS, this was our entry here at 150. Again, saw some volume that same day. So 5,800 contracts, not all of it carrying over, so could have saw some volume coming off here on the day and maybe a little of this ending one carrying over, but these did hit a high of 505 on the 27th here. giving us a 236.67% return on those. Next up, we have COMM, the 321.5 calls. Getting really nice move on these. These gapped up the next day. 11,000 contracts, 510,000 in premium. You can see that gap up, and then we actually ran more here on the 27th. Still looks like that whale's in, obviously, but hitting that high of 160 here on the 27th. It's a 255.56% return. So we're going to come back to Apple now because this was a flow and charts play. So let me pop that in here. So Apple, this is from our hottest contracts. So you can see that big hit there on the Apple puts, that net put premiums up. We're looking at that net jack, so daily gamma. You can see that kind of falling off there a little bit. Chart wise, we were in that demand zone or supply zone here, supply resistance zone above that channel, and I was kind of looking for a pullback to about the channel. And looking at that flow now, so we're going to go with the high entry here at open at 308. These obviously hit a high of 548 here on the 28th. So that's a 77.92% return on those. We also have these T puts. These are another flow and charts one, so we're going to pull that up here. This one is currently down. So we had that large whale here on the 321.26 puts, large spike in that net put premium. Most of your highest volume contracts were ask side bearish. Chart wise, we look like looking for a possible rejection there. So these ones, so this is starting to kind of get a little messier here because we're at 59% multi-leg now. That ended up coming in here on the 27th. So I'm counting these as a loss right now from 34 to 24 right now. I'm still in a couple of these. They're down 29%, but curious to see what happens here. Obviously, little time on those still. So next up we have dash calls. So here's your dash entry, 110. Obviously, you can see we spiked up here to 182, actually 191 on the day, but we'll go with 182. That's what I have the max here at. So that's 65.45%, with plenty of time to kind of get out of these with some good profit. Even here on the 27th, but now they're down, obviously expired now. Unity, so again, this one's a little longer term, 47 days on those. 185, looks like that whale's kind of chopping about 116-ish in that 116, 105 area. Again, 47 days on those. See what happens there. Nothing multi-leg yet. Could have been some cutting here at 129, but not really seeing a huge change in that open interest. Coin puts, these made a pretty good move yesterday morning. We gapped down there. So 261 was our fill. These actually opened at 339. 339 here and kind of made a small move down. So enough time to kind of get out of something like that. So 299, I mean, you're at 252. Something like that, especially when you know it's a weekly and it's expiring soon. So those, again, max return 261, and you can see that 339 there for a high. Then we have our 310, 599 SPY calls, 491. So 491 here was your entry. And these actually opened up about 567 here on the 27th. 27th actually had a high of 605. So that's a 23.22% return again. Enough time here to set stops and look for a small pullback. Obviously, whales probably starting to get a little more volume on here, so can't really tell. I was going to say whale might still be in, but seeing a lot more volume in here, so more than likely that whale kind of got out around here. Alright, so that was the 599, so we are now on to the 27th. So So 27th here, the 3.7 Qualcomm 152 5 puts at 112. Again, here's your entry, 112, hitting a high of 305 here on the 27th, chopped around 3 yesterday. So 172.32% on those. So again, kind of looking at that volume here, 884 contracts plus another 1,000, so about 1,800, little over. Most of that carrying over, looks like it's still in. The 314 SPY puts. So whale coming in here, 201. Looks like they sold those off here at 298. Again, you can see it, not a lot of that volume turning into open interest, so you can kind of do a visual check there and kind of see. But these hitting a high of 443 yesterday, so 86.13% on those. And again, another 417, 566 SPY put. Again, 523 is your spot. Again, looking at that full entry, over 4,000 contracts, 2 million in candle premium. Looks like that whale cutting here at 651. Oof, excuse me. Selling there at 651. These hitting a high of 850, 885 yesterday. So that would have been a total return of 69.22%. So those were our two SPYs. So the Cisco flow next, 321.67 call, 51 fill. So interesting on these ones. Still some time on those. Got to see what happens, but 2,700 contracts at 51. Kind of just chopped for most of the day. Then we kind of ran down with that sell-off. Chopping at about 16 right now. That whale's down 68% if these are buys. When we look at them, again, you can see that IV just staying up, and we're seeing ask side fills here. So it reads like a buy, but we'll have to see. Not sure what's going to happen there. Kind of looking at the net premiums there. A lot of net call premiums except for the 28th or 27th and 28th here. So curious to see what happens there. Call volume picked up at the end of the day yesterday. But that whale is down about 68%. IWM puts here again 222. Your whale selling at 254. These hitting a high of 383 yesterday, so 71.75% on those. Then we have NVIDIA puts here. So again, smaller return here, but enough time to kind of get something out of this one. So your fill 477 here. I've got shows 470, but it was 477. We hit a high of about 9 here on the 28th. I should have my high here at 1066 on the 28th, and these came in on the 27th. So that was our entry there, 470, 1068, 980-ish. And those were the puts. Intel, this one made a really quick move. So kind of looking at that. So this is where our flow came in. I had it at 29 marked for our entry. Actually, a quick little pop up here to 35. Enough time to kind of start adjusting stops up. You hit 35, down to 32, 28. So enough time to at least in a 10-minute trade, because if you're looking at this, you popped up to 35. You're in a 5-minute time or 10-minute time frame there from that 1250 to 1, and then even starts kind of seeing that pullback 1 to 110. That's enough time to get out of a trade like that. So those I count as a win. So 29 to 35, that's 20.69% on those. Now we are on to the 28th. So a lot of this flow obviously came in yesterday. Some of it hasn't made a move because it only came in yesterday. Some made intraday moves, so keep that in mind. We'll kind of hit on this quick. QQQ, here was our entry. We actually had ask side flow come in, and then some bid side flow came in right on top of that. But these making a nice intraday move from that 498, and we hit a high of 1024 on the day. That's 82.53%. PayPal calls right now coming in. We had a bunch coming in here right at the open. when we look at that here, come down here and look at the open. Let's see. Oops, it's going to be kind of goofy for me. Let's see. So again, you can see as that flow starts to kind of come in here, that size and that premium, you can see that IV increasing. Spot price coming in at the ask. Small drop in the IV here, but we do see some more flow kind of coming in here. Probably not part of that original whale trade, but that original whale trade as that size and premium started coming in looks good. Kind of looking at that flow also. I mean, 6 days on these, closing at 126 right now, so that those are actually just slightly be break even at 126. So those are break even right now. And our SPY calls as well that came in yesterday. 17,000 contracts, 289, big premium, 5.1 million. You can see that run up here, hit 577 on the day, 97% intraday move. MU, the 3792 calls, again, 290 was the fill. You can see that here, 288, 290, 513 contracts, 288, 147K. These hit a high of 410 on the day. So that is a, again, 41.38% intraday move on there. You can see that net call premium up, call volume up. NVIDIA, obviously, 13 days on these. Have to see what happens here. We look at the flow. These are kind of down. So 60.43, I mean, small little drop in the IV there, but at the time, we were kind of not seeing a lot of flow coming time. But again, these are kind of down right now, about 301, kind of seeing some ask side stuff here towards close. So that whale's down 42%. Looks like they're still in 13 days on those. PLTR, another put, 314.73. Again, your flow looks like it's at about 104 right now. So this whale's down about 48% on these. Still a little time to go on those as well. NBIS, the 3732.5 calls. Made a little pop into close here, so 156. Looks like we're closing at about 185, up about 15% on those. Tech, again, 95 was the fill, 1,000 contracts, 96K. Looks like we're closing at about 104 here, so up about 9.4%. Then we have the 321 Morgan Stanley, 131 puts. Again, obviously, we rallied into the end of the day. Looks like this whale's still in. Plenty of time on those. About 260. So whale's on about 25% into close. So that is our flow recap for the week. And again, this is the max return for these contracts so far. This week will be updated next week. If you're interested in trying unusual whales, feel free to use the discount code in the description, and if you'd like to join Stock Hub where all these alerts are as well, feel free to look in the description. And I do want to do one more thing, just again, I like to show everybody for transparency purposes. Everything will be posted in here. You can see all our flows posted in here. No edits. Everything comes in on time. It's all time sensitive stuff, so keep that in mind for those that are in Stock Hub or looking to join. Otherwise, that's all I got. Have a great weekend, everyone.